coverage continues right here on the Weather Channel, Hurricane Central.
Tonight on Evening Edition, we are in storm alert, and we are tracking a very powerful hurricane named Rita. And the sea of brake lights you're seeing is being caused by this Category 4 hurricane.
Tonight you're witnessing history in the making as more than 2 million people along the Gulf Coast try to move out of Rita's way.
And of course, as people try and get out of harm's way, we're talking about a city, the 4th largest city in the U.S. that has shut down, Houston, Texas, and the word today, gridlock. We'll talk about contraflow and all the issues surrounding this historic evacuation here in Houston coming up.
Oh, wow, what a night this is going to be and what a weekend it is. We are in storm alert tonight here at the Weather Channel. Hi, everyone, and good evening. I'm Alexandra Steele.
And I'm Paul Goodlow. Well, Hurricane Rita has weakened to a Category 4, but don't be fooled. This is still a very serious and dangerous hurricane.
So here's the very latest. Now, President Bush heads to Texas tomorrow. His mission to thank emergency workers who are gearing up for the storm. One problem is gas, or lack of it. Drivers are running out as they sit in traffic trying to evacuate, but fuel trucks are on the way. Evacuees are headed to San Antonio, Corpus Christi, and Laredo. Now let's get the very latest on Rita's track and landfall timing. With that, here's Paul.
Again, as I said, Category 4 right now, but still a very dangerous storm. Winds 145 miles per hour, down from 175 last night. Moving on towards the west-northwest at 10. The pressure, well, it's risen since it's 898 yesterday, but still 916. Still a sign of a very strong storm. As the pressure comes up, typically the winds lessen, but still, we're talking about it's like driving on a car, a freeway 175 miles an hour. There are no brakes. You just let off the gas, you're still coasting. And this is what the storm is doing. Could coast, perhaps even could get more speed as we head over the next 24 to 36 hours. And the path continues to take it towards the upper Texas coast, perhaps even to southwestern coast of Louisiana. Now with more on team coverage, here's Alexandra.
All right, thank you very much, Paul. Well, tonight we've got live reports from all across Texas. Storm tracker Jim Cantori co-anchoring tonight from Houston, Mike Bettis in Port Arthur, and Mike Seidel in Galveston. And first, Jim, let's start with you. You know, Jim, people have been evacuated as directed, but the problem now is on the roads with just people running out of gas. That's really the big story coming out of Texas tonight, isn't it?
It is, Alexander. We talked about that this morning. I think when most people left, they had no idea about the mass of people that were going to get on the roads. And as many roads as there are in and around Houston to go really in every which way, every which direction that you could possibly want, there is still a massive amount of gridlock. As a matter of fact, we are probably about 20 hours into this now for a lot of people. It has been a long night. It has been a long day, the second day of record heat here in Houston. And as you mentioned, people running out of gas. Today, picture this. I want to show you some pictures here as I tell you this. People in 100-degree heat rolling down the windows to conserve their fuel, not using the air conditioner, at times shutting off their cars entirely and pushing their vehicle with temperatures at 100 degrees, obviously a lot more on the road with the heat. And just, you know, for the most part, from what I've been hearing, listening to the radio, is people have had a pretty decent attitude as a result of that. So you're looking at the pictures of the gridlock, I hope, and seeing what I'm talking about here. Again, Interstate 10, Interstate 45. What they did about 12 to 2 o'clock this afternoon is implement contraflow, which is just incredibly difficult to do here. But now it is opened up and things are starting to slowly open up tonight. I-45 north to Buffalo toward Dallas. That is open again with a contraflow lane. Also I-10 west towards San Antonio, open for several miles just to the east of San Antonio as well. So that's what we've got going on here today. And we got a chance to hear from Mayor Bill White on his thoughts of people getting out of harm's way.
I'd much rather be dealing with the problem of a lot of people evacuating rather than dealing with the problem of too many that should have evacuated.
Yeah, and you know what? That's the problem. I mean, when too many leave and you don't count on that, and also I think the logistics of all this obviously played a role in the tremendous gridlock today. Well, a gentleman who dealt with that firsthand, and to tell us what it was like, Mr. Mike Bettis. He went from Freeport, Texas this morning all the way up toward Port Arthur in what would normally take, I don't know, a couple of hours. Let's find out how long it took. Mike, tell us about your day trying to get to Port Arthur today.
Yeah, Jim, 9 hours it took us. Absolutely brutal traffic. You know, we made our way from Freeport up toward Houston, no problem whatsoever. It was getting eastbound out of Houston. That was a huge problem for us. 90 eastbound out of Houston, 10 eastbound, 146 northbound. All of those were parking lots. At one point, we were going about a mile for every hour. It was absolutely horrendous conditions. No contraflow on 90 or 10, and it was just a parking lot for miles and miles and miles. And the same things that you were talking about were occurring on those highways. People abandoning their cars. They ran out of gas, or people rolling down their windows trying to conserve gas and not running the AC. But a lot of babies in those cars, a lot of elderly and sick, and so they had to run the AC. They had no choice, or else, you run the risk of heat exhaustion and dehydration for sure. A little bit different story, certainly once the contraflow began around the Houston area, because things got much, much better later in the morning. I-10 back toward San Antonio, and as you make your way up toward, certainly Dallas on 45, everything was northbound, so that was really great to see. But the people that got stuck in that traffic, it was a miserable go for them today.
The worst part is that there's no gasoline, no bathrooms, no way to get off, no way to get back on.
Been blown away. It's been easier. This is more frustrating.
Very frustrating time indeed today, and it looks like gradually as we go through the day tomorrow, a lot of that may actually subside a little bit, Paul, as we get closer and closer to landfall. Hopefully everyone will be in their final destination, and we hope they do, because this is a monster storm bearing down on us now.
You are right, Mike. And again, some good news is hopefully the traffic will ease up as we head on towards Friday. And again, the landfall might not happen until Saturday morning, which means the effects might not come in until perhaps midday on Friday. So hopefully, if you're waiting the last minute, the weather and the traffic will cooperate for you. But still, this is a very large and extremely dangerous hurricane. Category 4 is still forecast to become a major hurricane at landfall sometime on Saturday morning. The greatest threat, still, Louisiana and the Texas coast. And the impacts, this is a huge storm. They will be felt well away from the center of landfall point, so this is a big impact for miles and miles. Alexandra?
All right, thank you very much, Paul. We'll keep it right here. We are just getting started at Weather Central. Straight ahead, more live coverage from the Texas coast. We will take you to Galveston next. And then our hurricane expert, Dr. Steve Lyons, will talk about Rita's impacts that some of you may begin feeling tonight. That's all next.
Rita remains a very powerful hurricane tonight, as it is not only automobiles but also airlines that are impacted. Here's the situation. American Airlines suspending as of tonight all flights into Bush International Airport. Southwest Dallas flights coming to Corpus and Hobby as of noon tomorrow will be suspended as well. Continental into Bush noon tomorrow is their suspension time as well. Continental flights into Bush at noon tomorrow will be discontinued. Let's bring in meteorologist Mike Sedell, who's been in Key West for the first part of Rita. Now Rita's turned into a monster, and he's come over to join us tonight in Galveston, Texas. Mike, what is the feeling there, if anyone's there to have a feeling, and certainly what was your day like getting to Galveston?
Well, getting here wasn't too bad. We were on a plane from Atlanta to Houston on a big 767 jumbo jet, Jim. Only 19 people on the plane coming into Houston. We got off the plane, and the airport was packed. The plane was going back to Atlanta full, and then getting here, we were going against traffic, so we did fine. Got here from Intercontinental in about an hour and 15 minutes. Let's talk about Galveston right now. I'm bringing Joe Jaworski, a town council member and mayor pro tem. Thanks for coming out tonight on a steamy night here in Galveston.
Boy, you can really smell the water, can't you?
Yeah, it's 90 out there. It was 95 today. And the first ever mandatory evacuation in Texas because the law changed.
That's right. The Texas legislature at its last session changed the law and finally gave Texas the ability to give mayors and county commissioners the power to order mandatory evacuations. The mayor did that Wednesday at 6 p.m., signed the order right before she signed an emergency decree.
And how many people have left town?
We calculate we have put 3,500 on buses. I think you can expect a good 40,000 have left on their own. The numbers that we think are remaining are probably about 10% of the population.
And tomorrow it's just watch and wait.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this hurricane keeps moving. The latest track is encouraging compared to where we were 24 hours ago, which was a very grim picture, but we're going to find out more at 10 p.m.
Okay. Joe Jaworski, town council member, mayor pro tem. We'll be checking back with you for the next 24 hours as they watch it closely here, Jim, in Galveston. We got the seawall, but it's looking better now than it did this time yesterday.
All right, we'll talk to you later, Mike, to see if you're going to potentially stay there. Let's bring in our hurricane expert now. I want to bring in Dr. Steve Lyons. And Dr. Lyons, again, you know, at a 915 pressure, millibar pressure, this still remains a tremendously powerful hurricane. At present strength, all right, where this comes in, is it conceivable that we could have a Gulfport, Mississippi type situation on our hands where it comes in?
Yeah, if it hit the right place at this strength, Jim, that's definitely possible, and that's why all those low-lying areas hopefully have been evacuated. Let me show you why that's the case, and then we'll go from there. First of all, the intensity of the circulation is very strong. It's up at Category 4 strength, and that is stronger than it was when it hit Gulfport, Mississippi. That is Katrina. So the potential for wind damage is just as high, or higher, if it hits at this intensity. We think it's going to be weakening a little bit, though we don't think it's going to be that intense. Now, the other thing is the circulation is large, as was Katrina, and so a large area is going to be affected, and the surge is going to be very high depending on where it hits. As a matter of fact, we're thinking basically water level rises over a broad area of 6 to 10 feet, but locally, depending on where it hits, it could be 20 feet or higher, particularly in some of these portions of Galveston Bay. If that were to be the case, or over here in extreme western Louisiana, they're very surge-prone areas, and that can flood a large portion of the area with very high water from the surge. The other problem we've got is, on top of that, is the wave action. The waves in this particular hurricane in this area of Texas are going to be higher than they were for Katrina. So the answer is yes, we could have a catastrophe almost as bad or worse than Katrina somewhere in western Louisiana or the upper Texas coast. The good news is it's possible that we could have something quite a bit less if the system weakens and the system shrinks in size a little bit, but we can't bank on that. We have to bank on the possibility of the worst case scenario, and that's why hopefully all of you are out of harm's way, particularly in southwestern Louisiana, because the waves are coming in there. It's going to block the roads. Tomorrow you may not be able to get out, so you need to leave right away if you're told to do so. Let's get back to Paul and Alexander.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. Well, how will Rita impact your weather forecast in the next 7 days wherever you live in the country? Well, we've got your weekly planner next.
And the Gulf Coast surf is kicking up as Hurricane Rita turns closer to the shore. We've got more live reports coming up from coastal Texas. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Jim joining us from Houston. And Jim, certainly the story, the gridlock, but contraflow on I-45 and I-10, and hallelujah for contraflow, right?
Yeah. Eventually. You know, the damage has been done, though. You're talking about people that have been on the roads for up to 20 hours, unfortunately. Some of them left last night to go to San Antonio, okay, but came back this morning because they just sat there all day. They're like, look, if we don't get back here, we're going to get stuck and we're going to run out of gas. So some people have actually decided to come back to Houston and take their chances, especially since this traffic has shifted a little bit. Folks, I want to talk about the contraflow areas today that we've dealt with. And once this happened, things started to release a little bit. And these are huge areas of interstate. So to understand the dynamics involved and the tremendous difficulty to open up huge chunks of real estate heading north in both ways is just an amazing sight indeed. Another sight, empty gas stations. And here's a thought, guys. 18 of the 26 refineries that give us fuel in the United States are shut down right now. Do we have a gas crisis on our way?
The worst part is that there's no gasoline, no bathrooms, no way to get off, no way to get back on.
What a nightmare. No doubt about it. Evacuees having a very tough time of it as they try to get out of Rita's way. Pure gridlock. 2 million people along the Texas and Louisiana coast have been urged to evacuate, making this for Texas the largest evacuation in state history. And tonight, Paul, we're also definitely witnessing history in the making of several and on several levels, aren't we, as Rita approaches?
Definitely. Still watching a very strong, dangerous storm. In fact, the second Category 5 to be in the Gulf of Mexico within the last 4 weeks. That's also historic. And now the pressure has actually gone up from this point last night, where it was record-setting 898, sold 916. A very strong Category 4 system. 145-mile-per-hour sustained winds moving towards the west-northwest at 10. And the major concern is, even though it looked like it weakened and actually weakened just slightly today, it still is looking like a very healthy hurricane, major hurricane, which continues to move on towards the Louisiana and Texas coast. In fact, looking at the radar, still too far away to actually pick up the center of circulation on the radar, but definitely seeing some of the outer bands strafe parts of southern Louisiana. Flooding is a huge concern for the New Orleans area, but the path still takes the storm sometime perhaps late Saturday morning, somewhere along the southwest Louisiana coastline to the upper Texas coastline, making landfall. Again, that's just the center, but again, the effects far from that center. And with more on team coverage, here's Alexandra.
All right, thank you very much, Paul. Well, let's get right into our live team coverage. Storm tracker Jim Cantori is in Houston, Mike Bettis live in Port Arthur, and our own hurricane expert, Dr. Steve Lyons, standing by in-house. But Jim, let's begin with you. You know, everyone, the gridlock on the roads, people on the side of the roads, and now everyone's run out of gas. What's happening to all those cars on the sides of the roads?
Well, Alexander, the people that have run out of gas, and certainly we have heard of that this evening after spending some 20 to 24 hours on the road and not having a full tank, certainly you would expect that to happen. But what they've done is they've made preparations to bring in fuel tankers, trucks, to get up on these interstates where these cars are stuck, I-10, 45 especially, even 290 in some cases, and refuel these cars that are either stopped or pretty much put the tankers at a rest area where cars that are just dangerously low on fuel can stop and just get enough to get them where they're going, or perhaps get them out of harm's way. I mean, that's what we're trying to do here. And I can't help but to think back to last night when we saw all these people leaving, and I couldn't believe how many mattresses that I saw leaving southeast Texas. I was like, why are they bringing their mattresses? But now, you know what? They may be sleeping on those mattresses tonight. Well, Houston again taking this storm incredibly serious, but those that are going to ride out the storm, those that decided to come back and not deal with that traffic today, are definitely getting prepared.
The Houston Police Department is stocking up.
We are bringing in meals, water for the officers since we've been mobilized under our emergency mobilization plan. We have almost 5,000 officers on the Houston Police Department, and we need to be able to provide nourishment for them as they go about their duties. We have to be prepared because these officers won't be able to run home and kick their feet up. Most of them will be on, as I said, an average of 16 hours a day.
There will be officers stationed in every area of the city to deal with whatever Rita brings.
This hurricane is pretty unusual. We've had some bad weather in the past, and from all indications, this appears to be could be a catastrophic event.
So preparation is key, especially on the heels of Hurricane Katrina.
We're bringing in the mills, boarding up certain buildings to make sure that we stay in command and in control throughout the emergency.
So our fourth largest city behind me tonight, looking pretty as ever, continues to just kind of wait and wait on Rita. Let's go down to the south and east, actually to my east more or less, Port Arthur, Texas. Mike Bettis standing by. Mike, you are in right now the danger zone in Port Arthur. Can you describe for us what you think may happen where you are if we get the full brunt of this hurricane at the strength that it's at right now?
Yeah, it could be a worst-case scenario for us here in Port Arthur, unfortunately, Jim. The things we're concerned about, two things: flooding as well as wind damage. Not necessarily as concerned about storm surge. The reason being we're not exactly right on the Gulf, and the intercoastal is a stone's throw. I could throw a rock into it right now, but there's a lot of water that surrounds us here. So storm surge is not a huge concern because there are a lot of large walls that protect, especially from the intercoastal, and a few areas may encounter some low-lying flooding with some heavy rain that comes down. This is an area that floods a lot with thunderstorms, something to consider. But again, if we take the brunt of this storm, wind damage is going to be a huge concern as well. A lot of trees in this community, they're going to come down. Power lines are going to come down. We're going to be watching for a lot of structural damage to buildings as well. Something to keep in mind. This is an area that has a lot of industry. Huge area with refineries. They're everywhere you look. A huge shrimping industry as well. We've got boats everywhere, but this town is shut down. We've got numerous businesses that are closed down. People have boarded up. They're not taking any chances. They're getting out of town. If they're getting out of town tonight or tomorrow, what are they going to run into? Potentially a huge headache. So much traffic today. Gridlock everywhere you look. 90, 146, 10, all east of Houston, headed toward, Beaumont, or this way toward Port Arthur even, as you make your way toward Louisiana. It was just car after car after car. Parking lots. People weren't even moving on 146. No contraflow there. 14 straight miles of parking lot. Not one single car was moving. Unbelievable stuff. Hopefully we can alleviate a little bit of that tonight with people that have left. If you're leaving tomorrow, maybe, Paul and Alexander, and I say a big maybe on that, traffic will be a little bit less tomorrow, but we need to get these people out of here pronto because this is an area that we think right now potentially could be one of those cities that takes a direct hit from Hurricane Rita.
All right, Mike, thank you very much. We'll catch up with you again next half hour. So here is the bottom line, Paul.
This is for New Orleans, another city very on edge because of this. A lot of people now evacuating another time because of this approaching storm. We could see some rain, perhaps 1 to 3 inches, locally higher surge. 2 to 4 feet on Lake Pontchartrain, 3 to 6 feet around the mouth of the Mississippi, and we'll see tropical storm force wind gusts and still the risk of tornadoes on that right side of a landfalling hurricane.
And still a lot more to come here on Hurricane Central.
We'll take you back live to Galveston, which is turning into a ghost town tonight. Plus, find out how long Rita plans to stick around. We got the outlook coming up in the next 7 days.